Hi guys, I've got a sort of recap video for today. I know it may be hard to understand what John is talking about when he says that he saw a sign in the heavens, because God's clock is not always easy to understand. And John can be very cryptic, obviously, and he is cryptic for very good reasons. I'm actually a little that way myself if you watched my last video intro. I know some people will get the message. I'm not sure I know how to teach what I've been trying to show much better, but in this video, I'll sort of string the story together a little through revelation. I know a few people don't even understand the point of my videos, but you know what? From what I've heard, there are very few pastors that even talk about the book of Revelation because they see no point in talking about that book at all. And perhaps it does sound crazy, but right now, everyone on this planet, no matter what their beliefs, is living in John's book of Revelation. And on Monday, April 8th of 2024, during the third and final Great American Eclipse, which is also the message that the third angel flying through the heavens has for all of us, screaming at over 1,500 miles an hour. Well, during that eclipse, the seventh and final vial of God's wrath, Mars, the god of war, will be filled to overflowing with God's fury. And it's quite possible that Revelation chapter 16 will also begin during the eclipse, or at minimum shortly thereafter. Today, I'll try to give a recap of some of the videos I've posted this year, and sort of run through the whole story very quickly, from the four beasts to the Revelation chapter 7 sign and the Revelation chapter 15 sign, as well as the signs from chapter 14, and then the four angels who come out of the temple, and then the other three of the seven angels getting their vials filled with wrath in chapter 15. And I've got videos on all this stuff. Don't let the over 300 videos on my channel intimidate you. It is all straight Bible readings and stuff, with not a word of teaching or extra talking in them. If you look at my channel, I've only got these 12 videos total about things I'm showing here. They are the last 12 videos posted on my channel, and 2 of them are less than 5 minutes long, and 1 of them is only 10 minutes. I only have maybe 4 hours total in videos on all this stuff. So please go through my videos for more explanations. I won't be going into a lot of details in this video because it's sort of a general recap that people have asked for. You can always pause the video and jot down some notes if you want to look up something. The start of Revelation chapter 14 and the 144,000 that John saw in heaven, if you know the Greek term there, and the same Greek that is used in the book of Hebrews chapter 12 verse 22. He's definitely talking about heavenly Jerusalem. Please look at my screenshot here if you are interested in studying more on it. It is actually a whole term in Greek that John is using. Strong's Greek word number G4622. This is the Blue Letter Bible website that gives a lot of in-depth look at words. Once you bring up this word, G4622, with the search box, you need to scroll down to the lexicon section and click on the Show More, and go down to the bottom. This expression that John is using is transferred to heaven as the true dwelling place of God and heavenly things, the antitype of the earthly Zion. Used in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 22, and in Revelation chapter 14, verse 1. I know a lot of people already know all this, but it's very important information in Revelation. The opening scene of chapter 14 is not something happening on earth. It is a reference to heavenly Jerusalem. So, the full discussion of the 144,000 that John saw the signal of twice in Revelation, chapter 7 and again in chapter 14, we'll have to wait for another video. But just know, all that stuff has already happened. There were two very different but key signals that went out worldwide and happened exactly 42 months apart. There are many 42-month day counts between so many events happening on the earth right now too, as well as the biblical 7-year day counts of the 2520 days. For instance, the Revelation chapter 7 sign, the opening verses, of the 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth. This happened on 3/13 of 2016, which is a 2520 day count, the biblical 7 years to those Turkey earthquakes last year, in the shape of the gigantic 7, which was at minimum a sign of the 7th seal, which is the start of chapter 8. Not everything is in exact chronological order in Revelation either. A lot of it is like important detail points that are related to each other, like John is telling us about all 3 of the eclipses in one paragraph, yet they happened over a 7-year time span. I hope that makes sense. So when you are reading through the book, keep your mind open to that sort of thing. And don't try to peg every chapter or paragraph into the same year or moment in time. I'm sure if you have watched very many Rapture watching channels and everything they talk about over the past many years, whether it is talking about eclipses and all the connections with it all, or earthquakes, or people and all their connections, or even things in the far distant past. Just imagine if someone said to any of those channels, "Could you please just write everything down in chronological order and all the connections you've seen with everything for all those years?" It's just not possible, and have everything make sense. I'll be flipping through a lot of slides pretty quickly here. You can always pause to look at them better. Also, today I wanted to talk for a few minutes about how the first stars of Aquarius have crossed the 0-degree line of due east already, and show some screenshots of some markers in the heavens, because I know there are a few astronomy fans on my channel that would like to see the changing of the guard, so to speak. The official changing of the ages is something that not many humans have ever witnessed or been through on this planet. And personally, I'm thrilled to be a part of it all. It's something that only happens about every 2,160 years, and it's a really big deal. When the age of Taurus ended, the Tower of Babel was totally destroyed, and the people of the lands of Shinar were scattered. And a few hundred years later, Abraham was sent out of Ur, the city of light, to conquer the lands and give rise to the nations. And shortly after the age of Aries ended, the Son of God himself was crucified. And here we are again, at the grand finale of the age of Pisces and the fishers of men. And I'm feeling like it's going to be the greatest show on earth. And you were born for such a time as this. In chapter 4, verse 7 of Revelation, John tells us straight up what the four beasts in heaven are. The lion, Leo, the calf, Taurus, the one with the face as a man, Aquarius, and the flying eagle, which we know these days as Scorpio. You also need to sort out the word translated as beasts throughout Revelation, because John used two different Greek words. One are the beasts of heaven, which are constellations, and the other word is for the beasts of the earth. These four beasts of heaven that John tells us about are our new four corners of the earth. They are our two equinoxes and two solstices for the age of Aquarius. The four constellations in which the equinoxes and solstices occur. They are God's divisions of the darkness and the light, and they stand at the four corners of the earth: spring, summer, fall, winter. The constellation of Aquarius is our new head corner at spring equinox for the age of Aquarius that we are just now passing into. In the opening verses of Revelation chapter 7, John tells us about a sign in the heavens that he saw, and he gives us the clues to the puzzle that he wants us to work out in order to know what time it is where he is speaking from, or what time it was that he was taken to or shown. The clues to the puzzle are pretty simple. In order to know what John saw and at what time, you have to find a time when there are at least four angels or planets standing or occupying all four corners of the earth at the same time. So we have to go through Stellarium and find when it was that John saw four planets occupying or standing in Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. Planets in those four constellations at the same time. And John tells us that he also saw the sun rising in the east at that time as well. So we know it has to be near the time of one of the equinoxes, either in the fall or spring, when the sun rises due east, which usually happens around March 20th and September 22nd. So I found the time. And not only do we have four planets at the four corners of the earth to start the age of Aquarius, but all seven of God's luminaries are standing in those four constellations that John gave us, and all at the same time. And of course, the sun is there also, rising in Aquarius, only 7 days before the spring equinox, rising almost due east. And that date was 3/13 of 2016. It is also the exact same date as the Revelation 15 sign, which also happened on 3/13 of 2024. These two signs in the heavens that John gave us are exactly 8 years apart to the very day, and they are also 8 chapters apart to the very verse. And these signs in the heavens that John is giving us in Revelation are not something that is ever going to happen again or has ever happened before. especially when you consider all the signs together and their dates, with the Revelation 12 sign too, and all these great American eclipses, and the blood moon tetrads happening on Jewish feast days too, all marking out God's final timeline for the end of days. So what John witnessed was the end of the age. Just as the apostles asked Jesus at the Olivet Discourse, what will be the end of the age? The end to what Jesus was just beginning with his 12 chosen. And in chapter 4, John let us know the end of it all was the start of the age of Aquarius, because that is the time when the 4 beasts or constellations that he gave us will stand at the 4 corners of the earth. And with all of the signs in the heavens and on earth that he is talking about in Revelation, they are all happening right now. And we are much further into the book of Revelation than most people think. John tells us that a door was opened in heaven, and he was taken through that door. He was taken out of our space-time, and where God dwells, there really is no such thing as time. And since we are all here now, and I believe right in the space and time that John was shown, and the books have been opened, especially over the last 7 or 8 years, we are all starting to see just what John is talking about. All these signs in the heavens and on earth, as our story is unfolding before us. We are in it, in John's Revelation, the final book of the Bible. Isn't that just about the most exciting thing ever? I think the best advice I can ever give anyone when reading John's book, or really any part of the Bible, is do not try to insert yourself into every part of the story. You know, like I see some people trying to do when they are searching for clues to the rapture in the Bible. It feels like everything they read, they say, "That's us, the raptured bride." Not every single thing in the Bible is a type and shadow of the rapture. It's so much more than that. And most of what John is writing in Revelation isn't really about us, but more so events happening around us. A lot of the story is about John personally, and what the servants of God are showing him as the last surviving apostle, one of the 12 chosen from the very first day that our whole story began, when Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist, and his first 2 apostles followed him home. And John lived to be an old man, sitting in prison after having given his whole life for the cause, never wavering. And the other original 12, all long gone, having been beheaded and crucified for the faith, along with so many others. So many throughout those days, and all the centuries to follow. At the end of chapter 7, just before Jesus is about to open that 7th and final seal, and calling an end to it all, they want John to know what it was all about, what those 12 little mustard seeds had become. They want to show John the great multitude that no man can number, of all nations, kindreds, and people and tongues, that now stand in heaven, all praising the Lamb of God. all the souls that have been saved for 2,000 years. They want John to know what his life was really all about. And one of the elders asked him, "Do you understand? Do you know what these are which are arrayed in white robes, and whence they came? And what his life and the apostles and what they had been through had really meant?" And John answers, "Sir, thou knowest." And yes, so many had come through great tribulations, more so than any of us can scarcely imagine. And many are still in great tribulation today. But John is being shown their rewards and just how many have made it. And in the first verse of chapter 8, the seventh and final seal is opened, calling an end to it all. And all of heaven went silent. The chapter 7 sign happened on March 13th of 2016. And the chapter 15 sign happened on March 13th of 2024. Exactly 8 years to the day apart, and exactly 8 chapters to the verses apart. In chapter 14, John again makes a reference to the 144,000, which I could talk about later, but it had to do with the Ring of Fire eclipse of October 14th. So then John pauses to tell us about the messages of these 3 great American eclipses. And you can watch my last video for the discussion of all that. Then the last section of chapter 14, John is telling us about the signs in the heavens leading right up to this third and final eclipse that's going to happen on Monday. So let's just do a quick rundown of what John saw here. He starts off with the first angel, but doesn't say that he saw him come out of the temple like the other 3 he talks about, because the first one wasn't actually part of this final 40 days of the flood deal. This was the planet Jupiter, who came out of Aquarius and passed through the waters way back on 2/22/22. And it takes Jupiter about 2 days to cross the line. And that's when Putin crossed the line, 2/24/22, and made his move into the Ukraine on that date. And when Jupiter came out of the temple way back then, he was clothed in pure white because the sun was right there in the belly of Aquarius on those dates. And since all the rest of the 6 angels will pass through the waters of Aquarius during the 40 days of the flood on my timeline, they are all clothed in pure white because the sun is right there during that time. The second angel or planet, Mercury, came out of the temple and filled his vial in the waters of Aquarius on March 1st. The sun immediately followed Mercury later that afternoon, on March 1st. And John does say here that the earth is being reaped. And if you go back through my videos, I think you'll see what I had to say back in January about these final 40 days of what I was calling Noah's flood, leading up to the eclipse. So I really have no other guesses as to why John is telling us that the reapers are in fact sorting the wheat from the tares right now. Then the moon came out of the temple and crossed the line of Aquarius on March 9th. So within 3 days, or by the 0 hour of March 13th. These first 4 of the 7 of God's luminaries took their positions in the heavens for the big lineup of the chapter 15 sign. There are still 3 more of the 7 luminaries to go through those waters of Aquarius. But at the end of chapter 14 here, John is only telling us about the first 4 who came out of the temple of Aquarius and took their places. Then we turn to chapter 15, and the first verse is when John tells us about the sign in the heavens that he saw, and that would be the menorah of 3:13, and also the 3rd day of the 13th month on the Jewish calendar. And it was the same for the chapter 7 sign that I showed. These dates are significant no matter which calendar you use. It is the 313 of God's heavenly menorah. The 3 candles, 1 candle, and 3 candles of the menorah, with the sun right in the center, of course, to light them all. And as you can see with the menorah, just as John wrote, at this point only the first 4 have gone through the waters of Aquarius to fill their vials of God's wrath. There are still 3 more to go at this point on 3:13. And why John only talked about the 4 so far. Then chapter 15 is pretty short. It is really just the span of when the remaining 3 angels or planets will pass through the waters of Aquarius. Venus came out of the temple and went through the waters on March 22nd. Saturn crossed the line of the waters on March 31st. The moon, since it runs around God's clock so fast, the moon swung around and went again through the waters. Well, probably just about now, as I'm finishing up this video. The moon here is passing through or crossing the line of the waters of Aquarius on April 6th. And as you can see here in the capture from Stellarium that I posted on my community wall too, the moon will be squarely on the line of the waters in Aquarius, if you can see the line that connects those stars that make the waterfall. This happens at exactly 4:08 p.m. Jerusalem time on April 6th. And as we all know, the moon is headed straight for the sun to eclipse our superstar on the afternoon of April 8th. And they will once again draw their mark across the U.S. for a 3rd time. 3 strikes and you are out. And there are only about 1 million videos on this eclipse business at this point. And during the eclipse, exactly when it starts, the 7th and final angel or planet, Mars, the god of war, will be crossing the line. And that completes Revelation chapter 15. These are the last 3 verses of chapter 15. And it should be obvious with all the teachings that I've done now that Aquarius is the one of the 4 beasts in heaven that is filling up the 7 vials of wrath for these 7 angels. It reads, "And the 7 angels came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles." Yes, the sun was right there for all of them as they left the temple. "And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials full of the wrath of God, who liveth forever and ever." And that beast is Aquarius. "And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God, and from his power. And no man was able to enter into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled. So that gets us to chapter 16. And I think since the 7th vial will be filled during the eclipse, then we can expect the very next step is chapter 16, when the vials of God's wrath is poured out on this earth. And you can read through chapter 16 and see what you make of it all. It sounds to me like John is numbering these angels in order as they come out of the temple and get their vials filled. And since angel number 3 was the sun, and then angel number 4 was the moon, John writes in verse 16:8 that the 4th angel, the moon, that I have always thought of as Israel, is going to pour out his vial upon the sun, which is Christ. And it just sounds like the moon number 4 is trying to eclipse the sun. The eclipse, by pouring his vial upon the sun. And men blasphemed the name of God, and they repented not to give him glory. And I see that after the 6th angel, Saturn, pours out his wrath, it draws all men to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. And we even have red letters here. That's when Jesus announces his arrival. And they are all gathered into a place called Armageddon. And then it's the 7th angel, Mars, the god of war. And he pours out his vial into the air. And that's when the real destruction happens. So I hope that recap helps. I know a couple of you are interested in this one. A few days ago, I was saying that I thought we had to be standing in a particular place on the earth to see these first stars of Aquarius properly cross the 0 line of due east. But I did more investigating and checked several different places all over the planet, and even in the southern hemisphere, and I think it's close enough to say it's the same picture as far as what I'm trying to show here. I'll give an overall view of the scene so you know what stars I'm looking at here. And I'll leave my horizon line turned on so we can sort of keep our orientation here with our grid lines. This is 2024 at the spring equinox, and the line that the big red E at the horizon is on, and the sun too at the sunrise on equinox day of March 20th. That line of the graph going up from that is the 0 line. It is the exact line of due east, and it is the angle that the stars rise at. The angle gets steeper the further you get from the equator. So the Mayan pyramids is just a nice fun spot for us to look at it all from. It also has everything to do with the 144,000 and that October 14th wedding ring eclipse from Revelation chapter 14. Because that eclipse was also called the Great Mayan Eclipse. And an eclipse had not appeared over the Mayan pyramids in over 400 years. Not since the birth of the U.S. But it's all just too much to get into right now. So what I'm checking out here is, when did the first star of Aquarius actually cross this 0 line of due east, which should be our indicator that the sun at the equinox is actually rising in the constellation of Aquarius, or within the space of where I have every belief that God has divided his clock for the next hour on his clock for the age of Aquarius, if you see what I'm saying. Like I was showing before, how our backdrop of stars actually moves very slowly over the course of time. Do you see how all the stars of the fish of Pisces aren't anywhere close to rising due east anymore? They are way to the left of this line now, and they have been for quite a while. Here are a few comparison shots so you can see how far the stars have moved. This one is from the year 1900, and you can clearly see how the first stars of Aquarius that are going to touch the zero line, the stars of the pitcher of water, they aren't even close to the line. And look at this shot from the year 0, when Jesus was just a toddler. Look how far to the right of the zero line the stars of Pisces are. It's almost like these vertical grid lines represent nearly 1,000 years of time. Those stars of Aquarius's water pitcher are nearly 2 clicks away from that zero line now. So let's zoom into those stars of Aquarius super close and take a look at a few dates. Here's the year 2000 and the year 2016 and the year 2024. Some say it happened in 2012 when we entered the age of Aquarius. And that could be true too, because winter solstice of 2012 is when the Mayan calendar ended its long count after a cycle of over 5,000 years. And both the Revelation 7 sign and the Revelation 15 signs occurred on March 13th dates, and exactly 70 days after the Mayan calendar ended, the Pope resigned, which is totally unusual. And within hours, St. Peter's Basilica was hit twice by massive lightning strikes. And then on 3/13/13, the last Pope stepped into position. I mean, what are the odds that the prophecy of the last Pope, when he would step into position on the exact dates of both of these major Revelation 7 and 15 signs? So I'm actually comfortable with the idea that the age of Aquarius might have officially begun when the Mayan calendar ended. It is, after all, the most accurate calendar ever devised on this planet. And it's actually the way I first started my whole teaching channel back on 6/18 of 2020, teaching all about the Mayan calendar and its direct connection to the Bible. So we have the prophecy of the last Pope, officially beginning on 3/13/13. Then we have the Revelation 7 sign of the 4 corners of the earth on 3/13/16. Then we have the Revelation 15 sign of the menorah of the luminaries on 3/13/24. There is one thing that I'm sure of now. The first stars of Aquarius are now rising due east, and there is no doubt in my mind that we have entered the age of Aquarius. And you and me, we were born for such a time as this. Put on your armor of God and sleep in it. I see storm clouds on the horizon. May God keep you safe and under His wings, my fellow warriors. Peace out.